Hello and welcome to Career Prep. My name is Matt Studebaker. I'm a lecturer at the Woodbury School of Business at Utah Valley University, and today we're going to talk about interviewing. Before we get into that, please make sure to like and subscribe so that way you can keep and store this information from this lecture today, as well as future content that comes out. You'll be alerted to that. With that said, let's kind of dive right into it. So the goals of this discussion are to help you to prepare for an interview, how you should conduct yourself during, as well as when the interview is over. So congrats, you made it to the interview, right? This is hard to do, especially depending on the platform that you did. Not many people get to interviews, okay? So this does make you technically the finalist. And I get excited when I get into interviews. And the reason why is because I don't care how qualified you are on the resume or in the application process. It all comes down to who interviews the best gets the job. And so the playing field is leveled. So I do want to cover some crazy statistics here in regards to interviewing that will help prepare you. Okay, so in regards to what recruiters are looking for, okay, 40% or more are looking for the usual things like analytical, communication, interpersonal, leadership, teamwork, and people's responses. 31% like initiative specifically, 21% like creative thinking, and then 12% would like something else like unique or like I have global vision or something to that effect. In regards to the hiring process, the average jobs that are posted in or that applications that apply for a specific job on Indeed or Glassdoor, it's about 250 resumes are submitted per job, and about 2% of them get an interview, which is roughly about 7 or 8. Okay, and that's a lot. Okay, it could be even less than that. And so just know that it's very competitive if you go and apply for online using online sites like that. The average time it takes to fill positions is about 42 days. 22 days is the average interview process time. So like 2 to 3 weeks, just depends. And then 5 to 6 weeks is to get a job offer on average. So that means you want to be looking at least, I say, about 3 months down the road before you actually apply for a job. So that way you're not sitting there waiting for that process to begin, especially if you're a student at a university. Start applying for work within the final semester, if not before. Okay. Knowledge of the company. So this is some really important stuff here on this page. 47% said that they would not offer a job to a candidate if they had very little or no knowledge of the company. How much you know shows how much you care to want to work there or how interested you are in their company, okay, or that position. Body language. Out of 2,000 hiring managers, 33% knew whether to hire somebody in the first 90 seconds. What's going on in the first 90 seconds? That's handshake, how you dress, eye contact, smiling, and then possibly your first answer to the interview, which is tell me about yourself, okay, which is roughly a 30-second to 60-second answer, okay? So it makes sense when you hear that. 40% said lack of smile disqualified candidates. Want to make sure you're somebody happy, somebody positive to be around. 50% eliminated how they dressed, acted, or walked through the door. This is why dress is huge in interviewing. 20% disqualified for crossing the arms during the interview. It's nonverbal. It's not a very friendly nonverbal communication. It's defensive. 65% disqualified for failing to make eye contact. Not making eye contact shows a lack of confidence in yourself. 40% lack of confidence in their voice and behavior ended the interview process. We need to sound confident. 3 stages: before, during, and after. Okay, which one's most important? It is obviously before. So we want to make sure that you are prepared before you go into it. Okay. So I do a target company research assignment in my class, and in it we have you cover things like basic company information, company's industry, products or services, targeted clients, competitors, and how they're unique from them, organizational structures like culture, goals, mission statements, values, advertising, media presence, financial health, economic outlook, customers who purchase their product. This is why I asked them to do in my classes, because of that 47% figure that we talked about. You will be knowledgeable about their company. The goal is I want you to be more knowledgeable about the company and the people interviewing you. Okay, there's lots of ways to go about doing research. Okay, ONET is a great one. ONET Online. It's done by the Department of Labor, and I know that may scare people. Yes, it is actually one of the few good things the government actually does well at. And so it gives lots of stuff on skills and technology knowledge, work activities, salary. Okay, it covers a lot of that stuff. Glassdoor is great because it tells you what people are saying at the current job that they actually worked at, and so you're actually getting real, direct information from people that work there or have worked there. And then, because like the government's great, but it's broad. Glassdoor is much more refined. You just got to be able to find it there. And then the Occupational Analytic Handbook, that one's from the Department of Labor Statistics. So they share some of the same information as ONET, but it's also nice. Additional research, find out if you can people that are interviewing you, and then go research and find information about them. Look them up on Indeed. They usually have company profile pages. Look them up on there. Okay. It's good to get to know these people because you never know if something that you find there is something you could talk about, make a connection with that person in the interview process. Okay. If you're networking, which I hope you are, talk to your network. Okay, ask them what the interview process looks like. Okay, so what you're going to see. What types of questions are they going to ask you? They may know some. Okay, give you an idea of how long it's going to take or what kind of questions you should prepare for. And then, do they know anything about the people interviewing you? Because depending on, maybe you're interviewing somebody and their name is Michael, but they don't like to be called Mike. Well, that'd be important for your network to actually communicate to you. And then know where you're interviewing. Okay. Have you ever been to this place before? If not, I highly encourage you to go there beforehand. Okay. Drive to that location. At best, if you can, drive on a different day before the interview at the same time so you can see what traffic is like. But just worry that, like, you want to make sure you can get there. Okay. So try going there beforehand, especially if it's in like a major metropolitan area, just because it can get confusing, especially finding places to park. So you want to make sure that you can actually do that. Um, Arriving 15 minutes early is an industry expected standard. This is actually considered on time. If you actually show up on time to the interview, not 15 minutes early, some recruiters, I know it's kind of a jerk thing to do. I don't do this, or I didn't do this, but I know some that kind of feel this way, is that you're technically late. The expectation is you show up 15 minutes early. I actually encourage you to show up much earlier than that. And I just tell you to wait in your car away from the building. Okay. And then just show up 15 minutes early from there. It's just weird. It makes people kind of feel uncomfortable, especially people sit in the lobby for an hour before the interview. Okay, but I actually encourage you to come a little bit early, maybe like 30 minutes early, and then it gives you 15 minutes to kind of get your mindset right and to maybe practice some interview questions. Okay, because if you're running late, okay, and if you are late to the interview, you're not getting the job. Very few people have ever gotten a job from late. I've never interviewed with them that have gotten that, because you have to overcome immense obstacles, because our first impression of you is you're late. Okay. And it's a bad first impression. And it also causes you to be flustered and frustrated and all these kinds of things like traffic and all that. And so you're just coming in an interview with the wrong kind of mentality. You want to make sure you're bringing a professional portfolio. So this would include things that are a must, would be like your resume, copies of your resume on resume paper, notepad and pen, thank you cards. And then something I've heard people contain some of these things. Most of them are not really relevant. Like people put cover letters in there, letters of recommendations, awards or certificates. Probably the most common thing I would see in here is, depending on your industry, is like professional examples. So if like you are marketing or digital marketing, you include examples of that, for example. So this is what some of these might look like. They're just professional. They don't have to be leather to look like leather, right? You don't have to spend $100 to get something, $200 to get something like this. You can get a nice leatherish looking thing for like 15, 20 bucks. What we want to avoid is stuff like this. Obviously, I'm being a little facetious with the trapper keeper here, but you kind of get the drift here. This is not professional. This is. Let's talk about dress. Okay, remember, that 33% knew whether to hire somebody in the first 90 seconds. It's more of they knew exactly who not to hire in that first 90 seconds. And a big, huge contributor is dress. Okay, we dress for the job that we want, not the job that we have. Okay. For the men, that's a formal suit, button-down white shirt. White shirt is the business standard for colors on shirt. If it's off-white, it's not huge. I don't think it will majorly hurt you, but I just decide to err on the caution of professional. Wearing a tie, conservative. I'm not saying like conservative political party. I'm saying conservative, like it's just got, it's not too flamboyant or not out there. It's just conservative colors, right? And then leather accessories like belt and shoes. For women, it could be a pantsuit or a skirt, right? It can be a formal business blouse, stockings, closed-toed leather shoes, subtle makeup and accessories. Just make sure it's not over the top. I'm not going to be the one to point that out to you, but you kind of know what you're looking at. So you kind of see here just an example. If you haven't on this is the Art of Manliness, the website here. It's a funny site. You can check it out. But you can see here, it's just professional. Okay. For the women, there's lots of different ways. Obviously, you can wear a dress. You could wear like, they're not wearing like a blouse top with a skirt. That's acceptable too. There's lots of different ways that actually works. So with dress and hygiene tips, just make sure to keep your clothes pressed, wrinkle-free. Okay, shoes are shined, clean. Okay, if you can, have one outfit only for interviews, and I do. I have one. It's dry cleaned. It's wrapped in plastic in my closet, and that I only use it for interviews. That way, when I have an interview, it's just I'm ready to go. Okay. Facial hair, make sure it's well trimmed, no hobo hair. So if you do go that route, just make sure that that's the route that you're going. And then watch out for perfume or cologne. Okay, we don't want to be overpowering with that. And then preparing for the unknown. I have a simple formula for how to prepare for unknown questions. Okay. And so you want to identify like 10 to 15 job characteristics. Now, the number one place you'll see most of these is on the job description. So, and that's where you'll see like keywords like, leadership or customer service or management or things like that. But you can look on things like if you've ever done the strengths finders, that one's helpful. Like if you can look at the skills, that relevant skills you see on ONET or Glassdoor, or any other types of transferable skills, and you can see the list here below. There are lots of different examples that you can actually use during the to help you prepare. So once you have the 10 to 15 characteristics, write 1 to 2 responses or answers to each one. Okay, so if you have customer or problem solving as your characteristic, write 1 to 2 examples from your background that match up with that problem solving. Okay, and you want to make sure you're crafting these using the STAR method. That's situation, title, action, result, or situation, task, action, result, depending on who you talk to. And you just structure it that way. And so what this does is if you did the 15 and you had 2 for every one of the 15, you have 30 professional examples prepared ahead of time utilizing the STAR method. And this will just help to overcome a lot of shortcomings that I see from people. Because if you're from a recruiter's standpoint, when we see things like poor eye contact, filler words, long pauses, nervousness in their voice and tone, etc., what this essentially means is you are not prepared to answer the question. If we see those in excess, if we see them randomly here and there, it's not a big deal. But if we see these in excess, it just means you're not prepared to answer the question. But if you do what I tell you to do here, I usually see a 90% reduction in those negative qualities because you were just more prepared and therefore are more confident in your preparation. So, and with regards to the STAR method I just talked about, let's talk about that briefly here. So the situation, title, action, result. So what's going on in the situation, task, or title? What's your job title and the position? Okay, who are you? Action, what did you do to resolve, fix, or change this? And result, what was the result? How did it add value to the company? Why? And so we're not going to talk too much about this. We want to move on. But lastly, practice. It's very obvious between those who practice and those who don't. Even if you're good at interviewing, you still need to practice. I'm confident when I go into interview, but I still practice at least 3 or 4 times before I go to an actual job interview. And I'm confident at it. I have lots of experience both at being in recruiting as well as interviewing for jobs. Okay, so who can you practice with? A great person to practice with yourself. Okay, if you're struggling to find people, get your phone out and record yourself practicing. I guarantee you will learn exactly what you don't like and like in those videos. It's uncomfortable, but it's helpful. Family or friends, go to those that are going to give you objective, honest opinions. Don't go to the fluffy people, right? You can get family and friends if it's fine. Like my wife is the person I go to because she is brutally honest in the interview process because she has an invested interest in me succeeding. So she's going to make sure that I am prepared. And so you can seek out, if you're at Utah Valley University, there's career development center counselors that can practice with. There are other professionals out there you can practice with as well. But you just want to make sure you schedule those ahead of time. And so now we're kind of moved on to the during, okay? So mistakes to avoid. Again, remember, in the first 90 seconds, okay, it really comes down to those 7-10 seconds placating towards making a first impression, things like dress. Do you dress professionally? You got portfolio, your posture, smiling, eye contact, handshake, your manners, providing your first name when introducing yourself. Before they say, hi, my name is Matt Studebaker. What's your name? Okay, it's polite to do that because I am offering something rather than asking. And then asking permission to sit. Okay, I know it's kind of archaic to some people, but it's important. Okay, please turn off your cell phone going in the interview. There's no reason you need to have it on during the interview. I don't even care if it's on silent. Turn it off, okay? Because if it's vibrating, it still vibrates, okay? So we don't need it, all right? Also, watch out. Don't chew gum or have hard mints in your mouth, okay? Some people find the act of chewing gum is disgusting, and mints can be distracting as well as gum can. So just make sure, if you want to, get those little dissolvable strips, the Listerine strips that you can put in your mouth, or just wash your mouth out with mouthwash beforehand. So that way you don't have to worry about bad breath. Okay. Also, watch out for any other distractions, things like clicker pens, jewelry, keys, etc. Okay. So we're going to look at some different types of interviews and what you need to know, what they're looking for. So the traditional interview, they're just looking for specific questions about your industry experience, specific questions about goals, focusing on the key duties of the job, what you need to know, your background and career goals, discuss in detail information found on your resume, and make sure you correlate that to the resume. Focusing on the questions asked and avoiding going on tangents. That's why the STAR method is helpful. And then go through, give thorough, complete answers. If you're using the STAR method, that's not a problem. The phone interview, this one is getting replaced with what we'll see later, but like it's still done. People still do phone interviews, and they're still helpful. Okay, it's much more relaxed just because it's over the phone. It's usually the first interview. It's usually just kind of a pre-screen. So if they have a lot of candidates and they want to kind of pre-screen it, they'll go through this route. It's easy to reference your notes and resumes. Please don't read them. And then you can interview from home or somewhere quiet. So please dress the part. Okay. Sometimes I've heard from people where they're talking on the phone and says, "Hey, let's get on a live stream and do that on like a FaceTime or something like that." And if you're not dressed, you're in trouble. You don't have to answer everything right away. Okay. It's not like this kind of Jeopardy thing where the second that, Alex Trebek stops, you got to speak, right? You can give yourself like a second or two to kind of compose your thoughts. Slow down. If you want to take notes, take notes. It's great. Smile. Okay. People can tell even over the phone if you're smiling. Okay. Based off because your tone sounds different. And then show enthusiasm with that because you got to overcompensate for the lack that they can't see you. Group interviews are the most common. This is where multiple people are asking you the questions. It's usually hiring committee that's taking place here. It's the same candidates for each question, so they can avoid discriminating based off biases, right? Of asking different questions. One could be harder or not. So they just ask the same questions. And it's usually the best way to determine a candidate for most companies. So if you can gather information about people on the committee, okay, just helpful. Make sure that you're speaking mostly and making eye contact mostly with the person that asked you that question. You can look at other people, but that person's the primary person. You focus on the question. Okay, don't get ahead. It's kind of like sports. Like some people are thinking about running down the field before they caught the football. You got to catch the football first, then run down the field. Slow down. Okay, it's not a race, although it seems like I'm speaking in a race for this video, but just for your sake, slow down. Okay, and just expect follow-up questions. Case interviews are rare. You don't typically see these. Okay, it's usually used to assess decision-making, problem-solving skills. And so there will be an interview there to guide you through the process, and there'll be a debrief afterwards for like follow-up or assessment. So make sure you're just listening carefully, asking lots of questions to clarify the position. Subtle clues is kind of the key here. That's where you're going to find that stuff. Just highlight the key issues, develop a framework, and then write down practice as you go. Competency interviews typically take place after schooling, so like high school or college, because they know you don't have a lot of experience. And so the questions are more situational. If you have experience, then you'll be able to blow these out of the water. But they'll toss about like motivation or commitment to a career, want to know about your personality, your skills, your competency. Okay, same questions again for each candidate. Answers are graded on a rubric here just so they can get more clarification. And then just helps to relate the academic models to real world situations. Okay, so just make sure you got the STAR method, obviously be positive, or don't lie, okay, and then just using those more transferable competencies like communication, leadership, teamwork, etc. So Skype, Messenger, and FaceTime. So this is one of the avenues where phones are getting replaced. And so they are convenient. You get to see people, right? They're cost effective. And so you want to make sure you clarify your time zones. People aren't calling. You're like, let's have a meeting at 9 a.m. and that's the East Coast and you're in the Mountain Standard Time. Well, that's 7 a.m. there. So you can still do it, but it's just a lot earlier. You want to make sure that it's quiet. There's not a lot of distractions. Behind you is professional looking. You don't see like a bed or dirty clothes or things like that, or a bathroom. Okay, make sure it's clean, organized behind you. Make sure everything's working. Please dress professionally from top to bottom. I know recruiters that will make people stand up in a Skype setting. And so if you are not dressed professionally from the bottom down, it's going to reflect negatively. Make sure you're maintaining eye contact with the camera. And so not with the computer screen, because if you're looking at the computer screen, you're actually looking down. There's digital handshakes depending on the software you can do. Most don't use this, but if you want to, you can. And so put your resume on the keyboard so you can minimize looking down, but and keep a notebook nearby when you're doing them. This is the hiring trend right now, is on-demand interviews, specifically companies like HireVue. And there's other different names of it. HireVue is obviously the best. So these can be submitted. They just send you a link, and you just take the interview at your time within the time frame that they have it. And so it is great because it saves them a huge amount of time and money. And so, and they'll ask you a series of questions. You have a very specific finite amount of time that you have to answer it. So say you have 30 seconds or 2 minutes to answer this. And the second it hits that 2-minute mark, it shuts off the recording. So you got to finish it within that time frame. You do get time ahead of time to look at it. Usually it's about 30 seconds lag time so they'll give you the question. You got 30 seconds to prepare before you have to answer it. So that's one of the benefits of it. It's just uncomfortable. So one way to make it more comfortable is maybe have someone sit behind the camera so it feels like you're actually talking to someone, because it's just hard just doing a recording where you're not actually talking to anyone. And just know that they don't have to listen to all of these. They'll usually pick one or two. So you want to make sure to focus on. So you want to make sure you're focusing on every single one and giving your best answer for everyone, because they may, if you don't, the question you kind of laxed on, maybe the one they're actually listening to. Puzzle interviews would just be like giving you a complex situation or like a puzzle essentially, and just asking you to fix it. There's lots of different, HireVue does these, LinkedIn does these. There's a few avenues that go these routes. And so then let's kind of dive into the questions. So traditional based questions are, tell me about yourself. What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Where do you see yourself in 5 years? And so behavioral type questions, these are the most accurate predictor of future performance is past performance in a similar situation, okay? And these are anything like, give me a time when, or what's a time when, describe a time, give me an example. They all kind of have the similar thing. This is where you use the STAR method, obviously. Abstract questions are like they are, okay? They're very weird questions. They're not, important thing is we're not necessarily looking for a right answer here, okay? So like, how many pints of beer does it take to get a whale drunk? Or like, sell me this pen. If you could be a kitchen utensil, what would you be and why, right? And some of these, like we ask, like, the pints of beer with getting a whale drunk, like we want to see your ability to problem solve and critically think. But more importantly, we want to see like if we can distract you in the interview, because you're not expecting a question like this. And when I throw this out there, it's going to distract people. And we're getting 2 real world examples of how you behave, because we want to see your problem solving, because we want to see it in the job. We're seeing it right now. And we want to see how you handle distractions, which happen all the time in the work. Okay, so the big thing you need to avoid here is don't say something like, I don't know, because you just failed the question, if that's how you answered it, okay? Just give lots of think out loud, okay? That's what you do here, think out loud, okay? Don't worry about being right. This is not the point of this, all right? And then your questions, make them count. Heavily research-based questions, okay? Review the job description extensively. Make sure that you're utilizing your company research for these. You can look at other sites like ONET or Glassdoor. You can also utilize your networks to ask questions, which is a great avenue to go. You want to have at least 3. 2 of them are going to be research-based. You can have more. That's why I say at least, but like 3 will be addressed in the interview. That's usually a good standard there. And so, and the third question is always the same. So what does the interview process look like from here? And when should I expect to hear from you regarding this position? So that way you get a general idea of the time frame, okay? And then as far as like writing thank you cards, depending on the answer to that last question, if they say anything less than a week, or greater than a week, you can mail it that day. I like to mail it or take it to the office studio maybe like the next day. If they say less than a week, I like to write it after the interview and deliver it before I even leave. And then you can follow up after a week. And if you do follow up, just follow up once, okay? Even if they said it's 2 weeks, I still follow up after a week so I can express interest and just be more visible that way. And with that said, that's it for interviews today. And so thank you for your time and patience. And